Shocking royal shakeup. Camilla's secret financial deals are now under fire. Parliament is demanding full disclosure after decades of hidden perks, luxury spending, and zero transparency. No more vague answers. No more hiding behind titles. The question is simple. Did taxpayers fund the Queen Consort's lifestyle without knowing it? The trigger. Parliament raises the alarm. In July 2023, a quiet shift in royal finance triggered a political firestorm. Camilla, now officially Queen Consort, was removed from receiving a separate parliamentary annuity, a benefit previously given to royal spouses like Prince Philip. Instead, her official duties would now be funded through the sovereign grant, a taxpayer-supported fund used to pay for the monarchy's general expenses. The change seemed small, until members of Parliament began asking a bigger question. What exactly are we paying for? The shift caused confusion, especially among MPs familiar with royal funding history. One member told The National, "This breaks with decades of precedent. Where is the transparency?" Previous royal consorts had clearly outlined financial arrangements. Their public expenses were accounted for in itemized annuities, separated from the broader royal budget. But Camilla's funding now came from a single lump sum, one that also covers palaces, staff, travel, and more. That meant her personal costs could no longer be seen in plain sight. This change immediately raised suspicions. Was it just a cost-cutting measure, or a strategic move to hide how much Camilla really costs the public? Since the sovereign grant is already controversial, sitting at over £86 million annually, with expected increases to £124 million by 2025, folding in her costs without public explanation looked suspicious. People weren't just concerned about the money, they were concerned about the principle, accountability. Adding to the pressure, anti-monarchy groups like Republic began using this change as fuel. They accused the palace of shielding Camilla from scrutiny and called for a full audit of royal expenses. Their question: why did Camilla's funding need to be hidden, unless there was something to hide? What Parliament now demands is simple: a breakdown of who pays for Camilla, from which pot, and how much. MPs want to know if taxpayers are funding not only her duties, but also her staff, wardrobe, travel, security, and lifestyle. Without a separate annuity, there's no clear trail, and that's exactly what triggered this growing investigation. This wasn't just about one woman. This was about a system built on trust, and Parliament believes that trust is now being tested. Camilla's cost to the crown. Old questions, new spotlight. Before she was Queen Consort, Camilla Parker Bowles was already at the center of financial controversy. And now, those same concerns are back in the spotlight. As early as the mid-2000s, questions were raised in Parliament about how much Camilla was costing the public. And more importantly, who was actually footing the bill. One senior MP at the time warned, there needs to be a line between public funding and personal privilege. Back then, Camilla was not yet married to Charles and held no official title, yet she lived with full royal benefits. Her housing, staff, and security were reportedly paid for not by her personal income, but through the Duchy of Cornwall, a vast estate worth over £1 billion, traditionally used to support the heir to the throne. That heir, of course, was Prince Charles. But critics argued the duchy was never meant to support a non-royal partner with no public duties. According to reports from The Standard, Camilla shared access to royal staff, including up to 28 personnel, press officers, personal aides, drivers, even event planners. These were not low-cost services. And since they were wrapped into Charles's duchy operations, they never appeared in any public financial statements. This created a massive transparency gap. The real issue wasn't just how much she cost, it was how those costs were hidden within larger royal budgets, never separated or explained to the public. Even when Camilla began taking on formal roles, no one could say exactly how much of her lifestyle was paid through public money versus private funds. Now, with Parliament taking a fresh look in 2025, those old arrangements are being re-examined. Critics argue that for nearly 2 decades, Camilla may have benefited from a royal lifestyle funded by indirect public channels without offering any clear explanation. This renewed focus comes with louder demands. How much has Camilla really cost the crown? And for how long was this allowed to continue without proper oversight? The palace has yet to give a direct answer, but the pressure is rising, and the old excuses may no longer work. The 2023 funding shakeup. What changed for Camilla? In July 2023, Buckingham Palace confirmed a major change in how Queen Camilla's royal expenses would be handled. Unlike previous consorts, she would no longer receive a separate annuity for her official role. Instead, her duties would now be funded directly from the sovereign grant, the central public fund that finances the monarchy's operations. This wasn't just a paperwork adjustment, it marked a historic shift in royal funding. Consorts like Prince Philip and the Queen Mother had always received their own budget lines, making it easier for Parliament and the public to monitor exactly what they cost. Now, Camilla's expenses would be absorbed into a massive pot of money, already exceeding £86 million per year and set to increase further. One commentator put it plainly, Camilla's spending just got harder to trace. The timing of this move raised eyebrows. It followed years of criticism over Camilla's behind-the-scenes access to staff, services, and resources without clear financial disclosure. Many believe the decision to fold her into the sovereign grant was made to quietly normalize her spending, but it may have backfired. The public and MPs now want to know, what percentage of the sovereign grant goes to Camilla's personal and professional duties? Without a separate annuity, there's no longer a transparent breakdown, and that's exactly what's fueling the current scrutiny. Critics see the 2023 decision as a deliberate move to reduce accountability. If Camilla's costs are hidden within a broader grant, then Parliament can't ask specific questions, and taxpayers can't see where their money is going. As one royal finance analyst said, it's like dropping her expenses into a black hole. You know it's there, but you can't see how deep it goes. This financial restructure, rather than calming concerns, has done the opposite. It's reignited long-standing frustrations. Camilla's role might now be official, but her funding is anything but clear. And for many, the change in 2023 feels less like reform and more like a cover for something much bigger. Public backlash and taxpayer questions, the pressure mounts. In mid-2025, during a walkabout event in the north of England, King Charles III was publicly confronted by a member of the crowd who shouted, "Why does your family cost us £500 million a year?" The moment was caught on video and spread across social media within hours. It wasn't just an awkward scene, it revealed the growing public anger over royal spending, and Queen Camilla was right at the center of it. The backlash didn't come from nowhere. Anti-monarchy campaign groups like Republic had been circulating reports for months, arguing that the true annual cost of the royal family is far higher than the official figures, and that much of it is hidden behind broad budget categories like the sovereign grant. Their message? We don't know where the money goes, and that's the real scandal. What frustrated the public most was the lack of itemized breakdowns. While millions were being spent, There was no clear way to see what portion was going toward Camilla's security, wardrobe, travel, personal staff, or her ongoing use of royal properties. The line between private luxury and public duty had become dangerously blurred. One former civil servant told the press, "If any other public institution submitted a budget like this, with no details and no oversight, it would be torn apart in seconds." But because it's the royal household, there's a culture of secrecy, and that's exactly what critics want to end. With pressure mounting from both Parliament and the public, the royal financial structure is now being heavily scrutinized. Camilla's past and present financial benefits are under the microscope. People aren't just asking how much she costs, they're asking why no one seems to know. The conversation has moved beyond tradition and ceremony. In 2025, amid a cost of living crisis, royal spending has become a national issue. And Camilla, intentionally or not, has become a symbol of privilege without transparency, a symbol that many believe must now be confronted. Public backlash and taxpayer questions. The pressure mounts. In mid-2025, during a walkabout event in the north of England, King Charles III was publicly confronted by a member of the crowd who shouted, "Why does your family cost us £500 million a year?" The moment was caught on video and spread across social media within hours. It wasn't just an awkward scene. It revealed the growing public anger over royal spending, and Queen Camilla was right at the center of it. The backlash didn't come from nowhere. Anti-monarchy campaign groups like Republic had been circulating reports for months, arguing that the true annual cost of the royal family is far higher than the official figures, and that much of it is hidden behind broad budget categories like the sovereign grant. Their message? We don't know where the money goes, and that's the real scandal. What frustrated the public most was the lack of itemized breakdowns. While millions were being spent, there was no clear way to see what portion was going toward Camilla's security, wardrobe, travel, personal staff, or her ongoing use of royal properties. The line between private luxury and public duty had become dangerously blurred. One former civil servant told the press, "If any other public institution submitted a budget like this, with no details and no oversight, it would be torn apart in seconds." But because it's the royal household, there's a culture of secrecy. And that's exactly what critics want to end. With pressure mounting from both Parliament and the public, the royal financial structure is now being heavily scrutinized. Camilla's past and present financial benefits are under the microscope. People aren't just asking how much she costs. They're asking why no one seems to know. The conversation has moved beyond tradition and ceremony. In 2025, amid a cost of living crisis, royal spending has become a national issue. And Camilla, intentionally or not, has become a symbol of privilege without transparency. A symbol that many believe must now be confronted. Why the change matters now? A royal financial reckoning. The 2023 funding change wasn't just about adjusting a payment method. It marked the start of a new era of royal accountability, and for many, Camilla is at the center of it. After years of whispered concerns about blurred finances and behind-the-scenes privileges, the removal of her separate annuity sent a loud message. The old system isn't going to work anymore. This decision came at a time when public pressure was at an all-time high. With the sovereign grant projected to climb to over £124 million by 2025, and the country facing economic strain, there's been growing frustration over how the royal family uses public money. Camilla, whose expenses had never been clearly separated or disclosed, became a symbol of outdated, unchecked spending. As one financial watchdog put it, she's not just a royal figure, she's a test case for transparency. For many observers, the change represents more than a policy tweak. It's a course correction after decades of secrecy. The monarchy is under pressure to modernize, and that includes answering questions they once could avoid. Why should the public fund untraceable royal costs, especially for those who weren't always considered working royals? This shift also sets a powerful precedent. If Queen Camilla no longer receives a direct allowance, future consorts, including Kate, the Princess of Wales, may also be subject to tighter financial structures. The royal household can no longer rely on vague language and internal arrangements. Everything must now be justified, publicly, clearly, and on record. It also puts the palace in an uncomfortable position. They must now reevaluate every royal expenditure, especially when it comes to lifestyle costs hidden under official duties. In the words of one member of Parliament during a recent committee session, "If even the Queen Consort's costs can't be explained, what hope is there for the rest of the system?" This isn't just about Camilla. It's about how the monarchy chooses to move forward in the 21st century. The demand is simple: show us where the money goes, or risk losing the trust of the people who fund it. Official responses, denials, deflections, and what's left unsaid. When questions about Camilla's funding resurfaced after the 2023 changes, the palace stuck to its usual line. Her expenses are covered through private taxed income and not through the public purse. That phrase, used repeatedly by royal aides, was meant to reassure the public. But it did the opposite. Why? Because there were no detailed numbers to back it up. As one senior MP put it bluntly, "If there's nothing to hide, then why not show the books?" During past financial inquiries, royal representatives refused to release itemized accounts for Camilla's spending. That silence has become a pattern, a carefully crafted wall of ambiguity. While the palace maintains she isn't receiving a personal salary from the taxpayer, critics argue that's not the point. The real concern is the indirect use of public funds and access to royal properties, staff, and services that are technically funded by the sovereign grant. The 2023 restructure was presented as a modernization move, something to bring the royal budget in line with current expectations. But for many in Parliament and the public, it felt more like a clever way to bury her expenses deeper inside the system. Without a separate annuity, there's no clear line showing where her money begins or ends. It's all blended in. That's exactly what transparency advocates have warned about for years: the deliberate vagueness surrounding royal funding. While Camilla's supporters argue she's being unfairly targeted, financial experts insist that public roles must come with public accountability. One noted royal historian said, "This isn't about Camilla personally, it's about the palace's refusal to be honest." With mounting public interest and Parliament pushing harder than ever, the palace's old strategy of staying quiet and hoping the issue fades may no longer work. The lack of clear answers is becoming its own scandal. And as the pressure builds, the question remains: how long can the royal family avoid the truth, and at what cost? Parliament's demands: what they want to know. After years of silence and vague explanations, Parliament is no longer accepting one-liners or polished press statements. In 2025, MPs are formally calling for a full financial audit of Queen Camilla's funding, not just moving forward, but going back decades. They want to see hard numbers. How much has been spent on her travel, security, staff, wardrobe, and accommodations, and from what sources? Was it the sovereign grant, the Duchy of Cornwall, or private royal income? The biggest issue is that there's no clear separation between personal and public money. And that's exactly what Parliament wants to fix. As one MP stated in session, "If you cannot separate private comfort from public duty, then you should not be using public funds at all." There's also demand for historical transparency. Parliament isn't just looking at the 2023 funding shift. They want to understand what arrangements existed from the early 2000s up until now. For over 20 years, Camilla benefited from royal resources, but those costs were never published in detail. Lawmakers now argue that the palace must retroactively explain where that money came from, and whether any of it was taxpayer-funded without public approval. MPs are pushing for line-by-line disclosures, not general summaries. They want to prevent future secret arrangements from hiding inside larger budgets. This includes a call for revised financial legislation, forcing the palace to clearly define and justify spending on consorts, non-working royals, and extended family members. This is no longer just a political issue, it's turning into a national accountability debate. Parliament's message is direct. We don't fund mystery roles anymore. And for Queen Camilla, the financial spotlight is only getting hotter. The monarchy, long shielded from this level of oversight, is now facing a new reality: prove every pound or face public and political backlash. Potential fallout. What could this reveal mean for the monarchy? The investigation into Camilla's secret financial arrangements is no longer just about money. It's about credibility. If Parliament's audit reveals that Camilla has been benefiting from undisclosed public funds, the damage to the royal family's image could be long-lasting. Public trust, already shaken by years of royal controversy, could hit a breaking point. One royal analyst warned, "The monarchy cannot afford another scandal, especially one involving hidden taxpayer money." If the audit uncovers that public funds were used to cover personal expenses, such as private travel, staff unrelated to official duties, or personal security, there could be calls for repayment, or even parliamentary reform. The fallout could also lead to stricter legal frameworks requiring greater transparency in all royal spending, not just Camilla's. That would mean yearly disclosures, audits, and possibly even independent oversight over how the sovereign grant is managed. Internally, it could also spark a serious shift within the palace. Future consorts, including Princess Kate, might be required to follow completely different financial rules, with spending monitored more closely than ever before. The era of behind-the-scenes privilege could be coming to an end. Worse, it could reignite public resentment against the monarchy as a whole. With growing economic challenges across the UK, any revelation that millions were quietly spent on royal luxury could lead to widespread anger. That's the nightmare scenario for the palace. Not just embarrassment, but a national backlash that could threaten the very future of the institution. And then there's the question of legacy. If this scandal sticks to Camilla's name, it could stain not only her reign as Queen Consort, but also King Charles's efforts to modernize the monarchy. As one commentator put it, "You can't reform the firm while hiding the receipts." The fallout could be financial, political, and deeply personal for the royal family. The unanswered questions. What the public still must know. Even with Parliament pressing for answers and media pressure building, there are still major questions hanging in the air, questions the palace has so far avoided. First and foremost, how much has Queen Camilla truly cost the taxpayer since becoming part of the royal household? Not estimates, not assumptions. Real, hard numbers, covering every year from her entry into royal life in the early 2000s to now. Next, people want to know what percentage of her lifestyle has been funded privately versus through public sources like the sovereign grant or the Duchy of Cornwall. If her team and staff were quietly paid through Charles's estate, itself a tax-advantaged royal property worth over £1 billion, does that still count as private funding? Or is that just another layer shielding public contributions from view? There's also the matter of residences and security. For years, Camilla lived in royal properties, traveled with full protection, and used royal vehicles. But who approved these arrangements, and who paid for them? Was it Charles personally? Was it the taxpayer? Or was it never clearly defined? That's the danger. When lines blur, accountability disappears. Another concern is whether the 2023 restructure will lead to any retroactive disclosures. Will the palace agree to reveal how money was handled in the years before the funding change? Or will they claim the past is closed? One MP said recently, "Transparency doesn't start when it's convenient. It must include what came before." Finally, the biggest question remains unanswered. Will the monarchy ever embrace full financial transparency, or will these secretive arrangements simply be buried deeper under modern titles and new budgets? That's what the public and Parliament are watching for. Because until these questions are addressed, Camilla's finances won't just be a scandal. They'll be a symbol of everything the monarchy refuses to change. The pressure is real, and the palace is cornered. Camilla's royal expenses are no longer a private matter. As Parliament pushes for answers and the public demands truth, one thing is clear: the days of silent spending are over. Will the monarchy come clean, or is this just the beginning?